So the Chainsaw Man anime is hit with the force of a thermonuclear detonation. The anime has managed to exceed even my extremely high expectations to become one of the best things out there. You know you're doing something right when you're starting to receive backlash for being overhyped, but honestly, I think it's just about perfect. And now with our boy Denji finally hitting the mainstream and crushing it, we come to the inevitable discussion. Because there's another new gen beloved shonen anime produced by the same studio, and that is of course Jujutsu Kaisen. At a glance, they both look extremely similar. Jujutsu Kaisen began publication in Weekly Shonen Jump in March 5th of 2018, and Chainsaw Man began publication in December 3rd of 2018. Jujutsu Kaisen follows Itadori, a teenage boy who, after fusing with the malevolent cursed spirit Sukuna, teams up with a guy and a girl and joins the Tokyo Metropolitan Cursed Technical College, or Tokyo Jujutsu High, to go on missions exterminating dangerous cursed spirits, supernatural creatures who are formed by the collective negative emotions and fears of people that pull together until they form into harmful malevolent monsters that plague mankind. Chainsaw Man follows Denji, a teenage boy who fuses with his beloved devil dog Puchita to become Chainsaw Man, wherein he is recruited by the Public Safety Commission to work as a devil hunter, where he must go on missions to track down and kill devils. He is also put into a team with a guy and a girl and sent on dangerous missions where they hunt down devils, malevolent supernatural creatures that are powered by people's collective fear of abstract concepts. At a superficial glance, they appear virtually identical to the point of being almost like palette swaps, at least on a conceptual elevator pitch level. It's not hard to see why they are so often compared. They both have very similar grungy art styles. They're both pretty dark, violent series. They also have both received stellar anime adaptations from Studio Mappa. After Chainsaw Man Part 1 finished its publication and after the announcement of its anime adaptation, its creator Tatsuki Fujimoto commented, "Chainsaw Man is a copycat of Dorohedoro and Jujutsu Kaisen, and the studio of Dorohedoro and Jujutsu Kaisen will produce its anime. I have nothing to say. Please do it." Case closed. Slam dunk, people. It's official. The author said that Chainsaw Man is a copy of Jujutsu. The debate has been completely settled. Let's wrap up this video and go home. Jujutsu Kaisen is better.
Are you serious?
But is Jujutsu Kaisen really better than Chainsaw Man? Oh no, not Mahito and Sukuna! Even Jujutsu Kaisen's bad guys are laughing at their own series! Well, join me as we take a deeper look at the great Chainsaw Man vs. Jujutsu Kaisen debate, as I break down why Chainsaw Man is vastly superior and infinitely better than its edgy, dark battle manga brother-in-arms. And I'd like to take a moment to give a special thank you to this video sponsor, Boomslank. Boomslank is an anime and manga-style apparel company committed to producing original unlicensed designs used for a variety of different apparel to fit your everyday need for sleek anime-inspired style. Because I know you, you're a cool kid. You'd never be caught dead repping licensed merch like any of those other posers. No, you want to demonstrate your weebness with class and sophistication. Boomslank has a variety of great designs to fit any weeb's aesthetic. Cool designs made to fit apparel like t-shirts and hoodies, phone cases, printed posters, and banners. But don't take my word for it, just check out these glowing reviews. Love the design and it fits perfect. The quality of the shirt is just superb. Love this hoodie, the design is amazing and it fits so comfortably, can't rave enough about this one. Great color and crisp print and a comfy fit, Boomslank is a league above the rest. Hey, if the art's good enough for an official collaboration with Crunchyroll, then they're good enough for you. So let's show them the power of the little guy. Use the code at checkout and get 10% off your entire order. Just click the link in the description or the pinned comment and let's bring power back to the people through original unlicensed anime apparel and designs.
You gotta love to be gone back yet. Love is a 10 out, don't you grab it.
So for all you Jujutsu Kaisen stands out there, I hope you don't take too much offense. I know I've betrayed my bias in this debate, and I still really like Jujutsu Kaisen a lot. I think it's earned its way onto the current Big 3 status on Shonen Jump, which as of the time of this writing is being held by One Piece, My Hero Academia, and Jujutsu Kaisen itself. If you don't believe me, then just take a look at the most recent cast of Shonen Jump covers from this year, and you can typically tell which characters are considered to be the flagships by the magazine's editorial team by who gets pushed closer to the front of the cover. The Big Three is a time-honored tradition following the golden era where One Piece, Bleach, and Naruto were all being published simultaneously and all reached a great degree of global acclaim, with each series looking to take the empty throne left behind by Dragon Ball. Since then, One Piece has remained consistent, and the other series have come and gone, fighting to gain the right to march by Luffy's side. In the three major covers, we got our three main boys in the front, with mid-tier series going in the middle, and the far back featuring newbie series who are all probably flirting with cancellation. Denji never got the chance to make it to the Big Three, seeing how Part 1 ended publication before the anime hit, and Part 2 is now serialized online on the Jump Plus app, and it isn't published in the main physical Shonen Jump magazine, even if it does appear on the website. And with over 70 million volumes in circulation, a successful anime, and a high-grossing movie, I don't feel like I'm misplaced by saying that Jujutsu Kaisen has earned its current-gen Big Three status. I really like the series and enjoy it quite a bit, but I'd say Chainsaw Man is on another level. Before we get much deeper into this, just a warning, going to be talking about spoilers from both series mangas, so if you're anime only, beware. Don't say I didn't warn you. Jujutsu is a very competent battle shonen with a darker edge that I appreciate. I enjoy how mean-spirited it can be by brutally killing off major characters, especially in roller coaster arcs like the Shibuya incident. I think its world building is more detailed than Chainsaw Man's, but at its core, Chainsaw Man is just better written with stronger character writing. I wish I could find it, but there was a great comment I saw on my channel recently where someone pointed out that Denji and Chainsaw Man itself is a story in a character without much deeper meaning. Denji just wants to live a happy, content life. He doesn't have an ambitious dream outside of the pursuit of finding whatever his greater happiness might be, whether it's through eating a nice meal, getting a girlfriend, or enjoying the company of others. But deeper meaning tends to surround him. I've talked before about my love of Fujimoto's character writing. It's relatively sparse, but does a great job of accomplishing a lot with very little. Itadori is a pretty boring character. I know a lot of you guys like him out there, but let's be real, he's just a nice guy who's a little goofy and wants to save as many people as he can with his recently acquired Jujutsu sorcery skills so he can have a good death where lots of people cry around him, which is basically the classic, I want to become stronger so I can protect my friends kind of motivation, which is just about the same basic motivation of every goddamn shonen protagonist since the dawn of the medium. He's a basic bitch protag who even his own creator, Gege, has admitted to hating him. I find it so funny that Gege just despises his main character and also his most popular character of Gojo, with his favorite character seemingly being working stiffs like Nanami and the lawyer guy Higuruma. If I had to speculate, I think he wanted Yuta to be the original protagonist, but he was pushed by editorial to introduce a new protagonist who could meet the mold of the kind of upbeat, fun, and goofy characters that typically define Shonen Jump main characters, instead of someone like Yuta, who's always kind of depressed and gloomy. But this seething hatred is reflected in how Itadori is written. He's just kind of extremely basic. His ability is to just hit things really hard with his glowing fists, or hit things really hard with the black flash of light. From the writing and even the fighting mechanic perspective, he's just so goddamn boring. He's quite literally the pumpkin spice latte of shonen protagonists. His one saving grace is how much Gege loves to continuously torment him, whether it's having Sukuna rip his heart out in the first few chapters or failing to save his friend Junpei, not to mention the numerous tragedies he has to endure during the Shibuya incident. Denji is a lot dumber than Itadori, but this leads to a lot of great comedy since he's never gone to school and had very limited socialization. When he first goes into Aki's apartment, he's like a wild animal scurrying around causing chaos, which means he's generally blunter and funnier than Itadori, who just acts like a happy-go-lucky guy, versus, say, Denji, who unapologetically, with all his heart, screams out his desire to touch boobs. Here's where the key difference is. Not only does Denji get to touch the boobs, but when he does, instead of it being this rapturous moment, it's instead this anticlimactic, existential moment where Denji is forced to face with the horrible reality that immediate sexual gratification won't make him happy. It's this anticlimax that puts him on the path towards seeking greater emotional gratification instead of a more base physical one. It's a profound and deeply mature revelation to give a character who was screaming about saving the tits a few minutes ago. I don't think there's anything even remotely comparable in Jujutsu Kaisen with Itadori that's comparable to something like that. You could even say the same thing when comparing the other members of the main trio. Power is incredibly stupid, a haughty person who is the distilled essence of Walter and Eric Cartman filtered into the body of Zero Two. She's a complete moron, but unlike other characters, she's a lot funnier and gets some of the best gags in the series, not to mention the sadder, more dramatic moments like her heartbreaking bout with PTSD and the final scene with Denji in the trash can. Nobara, by comparison, is just the girl. She's kind of brash and haughty and a little narcissistic, but that's about it. She's just kind of the tough girl of the group that you gotta have because most of the three-man trios have a girl. She's okay, just kind of someone who's good at fighting and is slightly arrogant, and she's not super distinctive or that memorable. Then you have Megumi, who's just the brooding brooder of the group. Kind of a pragmatic guy who always looks pissy. He's a guy who doesn't like bad people and hates good people even more because they do fake stuff like forgiving bad people and giving them the excuse to continue to be bad. It's completely /R, I'm 14 and this is deep energy. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with him as far as these things go, but I also don't think he's a super interesting character, especially compared with Aki, who also has a particularly sour disposition. But Aki's life has also been defined by tragedy of losing his family and learning to love the new family he gained. Aki tries to be a hard ass, but the harsh exterior melts away the more he bonds with his coworkers around him, which makes his ultimate fate especially tragic in the Gun Devil arc, where he's forced to become the very thing he hated most. He's a character driven by violence, but his ultimate downfall isn't the desire of vengeance, but the desire to help and care for those around him at the cost of his own mortality. Like, the closest thing I can think of in Jujutsu Kaisen in terms of adding more depth and moral ambiguity is the Origin of Obedience arc, where Itadori and his partner Nobara face off against the Death Womb Painting brothers. They both triumph in their battle, showcasing their growth as jujutsu sorcerers, but it's supposed to be a tragic moment because the two Death Painting bros of Kichizu and Esso are brothers who each care for each other very, very much. But we're given next to no time for characterization after the quick introduction. They are killed as quickly as they are introduced, having been sent by Mahito as errand boys. And we, the audience, are supposed to feel sorry for them just because they are really attached to each other as brothers, despite the fact that we got next to no time for characterization for them before they got sent off on their mission. But it's played out like, ooh, Itadori, isn't it so messed up that he killed these guys who really cared for each other? He's a murderer! Wow, much edge, such depth. It's just trying to be edgy without having to put in the work to really earn the moment. This is compounded even worse when we get to see the big older brother, Chozo, who's featured prominently in other arcs, who will just not shut up about how important his other brothers are, despite the fact that we never, ever even see them interact. Like, if you want to sell us on why this is so important, do the bare minimum of actually having some scenes with the Death Painting brothers hanging out. It just comes across as feeling hollow and superficial, and at worst, try-hard edgy to showcase our heroes in a slightly darker light. The classic writing example of violating the rule of show, don't tell. Don't tell the audience how they should feel. Show it by writing scenes that earn these emotions. But take the Bomb Girl arc in Chainsaw Man by comparison. This sees Denji meeting a cute girl who's especially interested in him and very flirty before revealing herself to be a Russian sleeper agent and also a weapon hybrid much like himself. This arc makes Denji reflect on his situation and aware of how messed up it is that he is a tool of the state and sent down on dangerous suicide missions where he's forced to face off against killer devils. He's still a teenager who should be enjoying high school, and Reze shows him that by taking a night trip into a closed school. These scenes remind us and show Denji what a normal life should be like for him, and the tragedy is further compounded as she dies bleeding out and reflects that she never got to go to school either. It solidifies them both as doomed lovers and compounds the tragedy of the normalcy that was denied to both of them by both of their respective Japanese and Russian governments, seeing how Reze was a Russian agent trained from childhood to serve her purpose. The Reze school plot thread is introduced when she starts flirting with him, and they both sneak into a school, then skinny dip. Then it has its earned payoff during her climactic death scene, earning the tragic moment versus the Death Paintings whining that they really care about their brothers despite us not having spent any time with them. Chainsaw Man is filled with rich setups and payoffs, filled with moments of growth or extreme tragedy. Not to say Jujutsu Kaisen doesn't have those either, but they're usually a lot simpler, usually coming in the form of more basic shonen storytelling, like foreshadowing some kind of cool power-up and then paying it off, like Megumi's domain expansion or him summoning the final creature for his 10 Shadows technique. Another thing that makes Chainsaw Man better is how Fujimoto manages pacing and tone. He does a great job of knowing when to slow down or show more low-key slice-of-life moments. And his slice-of-life moments are so rich and varied. They can be extremely funny, like Denji, Aki, and Power bonding over the fact that they all barfed, or having the team meet up to go out and get drinks after a successful mission. They just have this wonderful sense of grounded reality where the vibe feels like a hangout indie movie. But he manages to infuse these moments with incredible moments of melancholy as well as humor. Like take the infamous puke scene where a drunk Himio makes out with Denji, then pukes into his mouth in one of the greatest panels ever drawn. Then Denji, as he's gagging in the alley, complaining that he'll always remember his first kiss as puke. Then we get a moment where Makima in an alley gives him an indirect kiss through a lollipop and reminds him that he should remember that taste to make up for the puke. It's a wonderfully sweet moment where gross-out comedy smoothly transitions into legitimately earned sentimentality. Chainsaw Man is filled with wonderful moments like these that are effortlessly conveyed as a tonal masterpiece. I don't think there's anything even remotely comparable in Jujutsu. The humor in Jujutsu is pretty basic manga humor with characters being overly exaggerated. I guess you could argue Gojo adds a lot of humor, but most of his jokes just feel like, ah man, how cool would it be to have Zoomer TikTok Kakashi? He's just kind of irresponsible, but also all-powerful too, and have him be very carefree and lackadaisical. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it's just a more basic form of anime comedy compared to some of the best gags in Chainsaw Man that literally had me laughing out loud, slapping my knee, and not just making me utter a minor chuckle in the back of my head. I mean, take this moment. And compare it to this. One is just kind of exaggerated, the other one, while kind of puerile and immature, is executed with flawless pacing and timing, and is perfectly earned. Especially after Aki throws Denji down, lights a cigarette on him, and puts it out by spitting. Jujutsu also does one of my least favorite things in manga, which is to have the straight man character repeat the joke. And honestly, there's no greater killer of comedy than when you have to deploy a gag and then have other characters reiterate what the gag is to reinforce it to the audience. I guess it kind of makes sense in comic form, but it's like having a comedian explain their punchline after they tell a joke. It's just lame. Jujutsu Kaisen isn't the only mainstream shonen manga that does this, and God knows every goddamn gag manga does it as well. But Fujimoto is so skilled in his page layouts and writing that he doesn't need to use this lazy device as a crutch. When Power says she wants to be the prime minister, we don't get a lot of reaction panels going, "Oh wow, I can't believe she says she wants to be the first president. That's so crazy." Just reiterating the punchline of the joke. Another big weakness is that Jujutsu Kaisen kind of has hampered world building, so now you could say that Chainsaw Man's world building is kind of limited, and to that I'd agree. But one reason why I don't hold it against the series is because it never really builds the expectation of having really strong world building. Instead, it puts most of the eggs of its creative basket into having strong characters. While in Jujutsu, we have all kinds of world-building elements, like the 3 great Jujutsu sorcery families and clans like the Zenin clan, the Kamo clan, and the Gojo family. We get very, very little about how these families work or how they interact with each other. Hell, we keep on being told about how there's this stodgy old leadership of the Jujutsu world that's really conservative and stuck up. But we never get formally introduced to it or understand how it works, except for seeing Principal Gakuganji, who just serves as the boring avatar of stuck-up Japanese conservatism. It just feels like a poor man's imitation of what Togashi's achieved with Hunter x Hunter, without really understanding why any of the stuff Togashi does works in the first place. None of these elements ruin the series entirely for me, it's just why I hold it in lower regard compared to something like Chainsaw Man. Denji goes through the ringer, he's beaten and bruised mentally and physically, he has great moments of profound introspective growth while also being a hilarious feral animal of a teenager. He's easily the best main protagonist I've seen in mainstream shonen manga. But what does Itadori have? He just gets the sudden realization that his role is to kill curses and he enjoys being a cog in the machine, and that's his greater purpose. Like, these are not super deep or particularly engaging things to build a main character around. Maybe his mindset changes, but he was already killing curses and never really hesitated, and the series has not made any kind of case that killing curses is somehow morally bad except briefly in the Origin of Obedience arc. Fujimoto is also a huge movie buff, and I would say he's the Tarantino of manga. Fujimoto consumes art of all kinds, both high and lowbrow. This is perfectly reflected in the Chainsaw Man opening, which is as much a love letter to the man's work as much as it is an anime opening. We have references to Jacob's Ladder, Pulp Fiction, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, The Big Lebowski, Fight Club. It is a tonal stew that manages to always run between the different extremes of highbrow and lowbrow art. In Chainsaw Man, we have scenes that feel like high-concept, abstract, esoteric art like the Darkness Devil scene in Hell, but we also have dumb lowbrow jokes like the aforementioned puke scene or Denji riding Beam to charge forward in a literal Sharknado showdown fight. We have quiet, intimate moments like Denji going with Aki to his parents' grave, and Aki coming to the realization that he's really come to deeply care for Denji and Power, plus the devastating scene as Denji tries to take care of Power when she's suffering from PTSD. This constant swerve of high and lowbrow material keeps us on our toes. You never know what to expect in a new chapter of Chainsaw Man, and it's part of its magic. That's what transformed it into such a sensation. Fujimoto is able to eat and digest both lowbrow and highbrow art and distill it in his warped mind, then puke it out to create his masterpieces of modern manga. Recently, I even went back to go read some of Gege's old short manga chapters that he wrote on his path towards serialization. And even though I'd say the art is better than what I've seen from Fujimoto's varied one-shots, they are not nearly as varied and creative as what he accomplishes. What really impressed me about Fujimoto is also his range. He goes from high-concept fantasy like Yogen no Nayuta, where a brother has to deal with his Antichrist little sister who only speaks in grunge metal lyrics, to the absurdly sweet slice-of-life storytelling of Imoto no Ane, where an older sister must deal with the ramifications of her younger sister winning a grand art prize by painting a nude portrait of her. Gege's previous work does not have that range, although for Jujutsu Kaisen fans, I'd recommend looking into the one-shot number 9, since it does feel like it has the most DNA with Jujutsu Kaisen, and even has a main character that feels like an early prototype of Gojo. And let's not forget to mention Fujimoto's recent masterpieces of Look Back and Goodbye Eri. During the break between Part 1 and Part 2 of Chainsaw Man, he created 3 one-shots just for the love of the medium and love of telling stories. You don't get more Chadley than that. In some ways, it's not a fair comparison since Gege is still in the midst of publishing Jujutsu Weekly, but Fujimoto is just running circles around him. It's even reflected perfectly in the recent anime adaptations. There was an interesting thread on Reddit I read that claimed Fujimoto started to take his Twitter account seriously and stopped pretending to be his imaginary little sister who talks about eating food to promote the anime, because apparently in the Japanese fandom, many have been complaining about its poor pacing. Allegedly, again, this is all from Reddit, so I can't verify if any of this is true. But supposedly, Japanese fans were complaining about the slow pacing, giving it 70 out of 100 review scores for the first 3 episodes on whatever the Japanese version of IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes is, and didn't like the realistic and cinematic approach because they wanted to feel more like a Gonzo B movie. Supposedly, Japanese fans were complaining so much that the series director needed to close down his Twitter comments, which to me is hugely grossly misunderstanding what makes the Chainsaw Man so great. The genius is not the balls-to-the-wall action or even the comedy, it's the ability to have those slow, slice-of-life moments, to get that indie movie vibe which so far the anime has managed to translate perfectly. Like the 1 minute we got recently of Aki just having his quiet morning routine of cleaning his house and doing chores before it's completely upended by the introduction of Power. The second scene works so much better because you have the nice setup with the first. That's the true power of Chainsaw Man. You actually want to see these characters hang out and do menial shit. And the best moments of characterization and emotional payoffs come in these moments. They are what raised Chainsaw Man from pretty good to a modern masterpiece. I can't say the same for any of the characters in Jujutsu Kaisen because we're always waiting for them to run into the next set-piece fight. So I certainly hope Mappa ignores the haters and keeps on doing what they've been doing. It's also interesting to compare the 2 series art. I've talked with 2 personal friends about who they thought was the better artist, Gege or Fujimoto, and they both said Gege is the stronger artist. And I guess when you compare some of the basic character designs, it's hard not to see why. Fujimoto's human characters are much simpler, they don't have very distinctive silhouettes, and the faces all look kind of the same. But I think Fujimoto is much better at structuring his panels and laying them out for maximum cinematic impact, and his creature designs are also much stronger and more memorable. His love of film bleeds into his work, like the fantastic Bomb Girl arc, which has so many iconic panels that they look like they were directly lifted from Ridley Scott's Alien, and perfectly channel the psychosexual terror of H.R. Giger's infamous xenomorph design. His love of film just means he's a master at pacing and structuring his flow. Not saying Gege is bad or anything, but nothing I've seen in Jujutsu has felt as engaging or as artistically unique as the best stuff in Chainsaw Man. There's a great scene towards the end of the first part of the series where Makima is confronting Denji in the cemetery. He asks her, in the perfect world, will bad movies still exist? And she tells him that in her world, bad movies will not. That is what gives him the final resolve to take her down, because you can't have good art if you don't have bad art. The highbrow cannot exist without the lowbrow. It is the raison d'etre that justifies Chainsaw Man's existence and the existence of most of Fujimoto's work. I don't get anything like that out of Gege's Jujutsu Kaisen. I just get a sense that he wanted to make a grungier, meaner version of Hunter x Hunter with a little more supernatural flavoring and a little style from Bleach liberally sprinkled in, and lots of fast-paced, action-packed fights. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think Mappa did an excellent job with the first season of the anime, even elevating stuff like the Goodwill Exchange event to new heights, given that it was just kind of a subpar Chunin exam in its original manga form. But let's be honest, even with the only few episodes of Chainsaw Man that have aired as of the time of this writing, I think Mappa has managed to completely eclipse even the great work they did there. I hope you don't think I'm completely shitting on Jujutsu. There's still a lot I love. I love the pacing and the execution of the Shibuya incident. I think Maki is one of the best arcs I've seen for a girl in any recent manga or hell mainstream anything at this point, and I wish Western genre media like Marvel would take a note on how to sell a really good female character outside of just having them be a girl boss who's right all the time. I like Jujutsu, but I still love Chainsaw Man much more. But that is just my opinion. I'm sure many of you will fight me in the comments. This is going to be a lively one, and I can already tell, considering that there's already some backlash at the Chainsaw Man for being overhyped, and the fact that both animes come from the same studio. But let me know. I'll be including a community poll to see which you guys like better. So go there and vote. Let me know. What side are you on? Are you a Chainsaw Man Denji diehard or a Jujutsu stan ready to put your life on the line for what will inevitably become the next dumb big clash of anime fandoms? Thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments about which series you ultimately liked better. I'll also include a poll in my community section so we can reach a definitive final answer to the great question of which series is better, Jujutsu Kaisen or Chainsaw Man. So all you sorcerers and devil hunters better make your way over there and vote so we can have one final decisive conclusion to settle the matter once and for all. But before, I must tell you about the great primal fear devil and special grade cursed spirit, the greatest nemesis every content creator must face, and that is, of course, Stanley Tucci.
Algorithms! Math!
It is through his unseen will that all the time and effort I spend making videos is either financially rewarded or forced to completely fail. So if you've enjoyed the video, do the things Stanley Tucci commands. Like, comment, subscribe. Hit that notification bell so there's a small chance my crap will be seen on your YouTube homepage. It probably won't, but Stanley Tucci keeps telling me that's something you need to do. And a special thank you to all the devil hunters and Jujutsu sorcerers on Patreon who helped me in the never-ending uphill battle against Stanley Tucci. You are, of course, welcome to join them on my Patreon and keep on doing the devil hunter dance of fun and glory with Denji in power. So I look forward to seeing you when I make my next video.